December 10th, 1903, Volume 6. Every time the soul seeks the Lord, she receives a divine shade, a divine feature. Continuing in my usual state, I felt a weight over my soul, as if the whole world weighed upon me because of the privation of blessed Jesus. And in my immense bitterness, I did as much as I could to look for him. Then once he came, he told me, "My daughter, every time the soul looks for me, she receives a divine shade, a divine feature, and is reborn in me as many times, and I am reborn in her." While he was saying this, I was thinking of what he had said, almost surprised, and I said, "Lord, what are you saying?" And he added, "Oh, if you knew the glory, the taste that the whole of heaven feels in receiving this note from the earth, a soul that constantly seeks God, all similar to them. What is the life of the blessed? What is it that forms it? Their being reborn continuously in God and God in them. This is the saying, God is ever old and ever new. Nor do they ever feel tired, because they are in continuous attitude of new life in God. December 10th, 1915, Volume 11. Our prayers, actions, and sufferings must flow within those of Jesus, to do the good that Jesus did. I was feeling very afflicted because my sweet Jesus, my life, my all, did not make himself seen. I was lamenting. If I could, I would like to deafen heaven and earth with my laments. What a great misfortune, to know him, love him, and remain without him. Can a greater misfortune ever be given? But while I was lamenting, blessed Jesus, making himself seen in my interior, told me with a severe look, "My daughter, do not tempt me." What? I told you everything to make you be tranquil. I told you that when I do not come, it is because I have to inflict greater chastisements, because my justice wants it. And I even told you the reasons. Before, you did not believe that it was in order to chastise that I was not coming as usual, because you did not hear that great chastisements were occurring in the world. Now you hear them, and in spite of this you still doubt? Isn't this tempting me? I was shaking in seeing and hearing Jesus so severe. In order to calm me down, he changed his look, and all kindness added, "My daughter, courage. I will not leave you. I am inside of you, although you do not always see me. And you, unite yourself always with me. If you pray, may your prayer flow in mine. Make it your own. In this way, you too will do all that I did with my prayers. The glory I gave to the Father, the good I pleaded for all, you will do it as well. If you work, make your work flow into mine, and make it your own. So you will have in your power all the good that my humanity did, which sanctified and divinized everything. And if you suffer, may your suffering flow in mine. Make it your own. So you will have in your power all the good that I did in redemption. With this, you will take the 3 essential points of my life, and as you do so, immense seas of graces will come out from you, and pour out for the good of all. And I will look at your life, not as your own, but as mine. December 10th, 1918, Volume 12. Effects of the prayers of the souls who are intimate with Jesus. I was saying to my sweet Jesus, See, I don't know how to do anything, nor do I have anything to give you, but I want to give you my trifles. I unite these trifles of mine to the all, as you are, and I ask you for souls. Therefore, as I breathe, my breathing asks you for souls. The beating of my heart, with incessant cries, asks you for souls. The motion of my arms, the blood which circulates in me, the batting of my eyelids, the movement of my lips, are souls that I ask of you. And I ask this united with you, with your love and in your will, so that everyone may hear my incessant cry within you, always asking for souls. Now as I was saying this and other things, my Jesus moved in my interior and told me, "My daughter, how sweet and pleasing to me is the prayer of the souls who are intimate with me. How I feel my hidden life of Nazareth being repeated, with no outward appearance, without any circle of people, with no sound of bells, completely neglected and alone, to the extent that I was barely known. I kept rising between heaven and earth asking for souls. Not even a breath or a heartbeat escaped me, which did not ask for souls. And as I did this, my blast resounded in heaven and drew the love of the Father to give me souls. This same sound, reverberating in hearts, cried out in a sonorous voice, 'Souls.' How many wonders did I not work during my hidden life, known only to my Father in heaven and to my Mother on earth? The same for the hidden soul who is intimate with me. As she prays, though no sound is heard on earth, her prayers, like bells, resound more vibrantly in heaven, to the extent of calling the whole of heaven to unite itself with her, and to let mercy descend upon the earth, which, resounding not to the hearing, but to the hearts of creatures, may dispose them to convert. December 10th, 1921, Volume 13, The Fecundity of One Act Done in the Divine Will. As I was in my usual state, my always lovable Jesus came, telling me, "My daughter, how great is one act done in my will. See, if you asked the sun, how many seeds have you fecundated? How many of them have you multiplied from the moment you rose above our horizon? Neither the sun, nor any other creature, as learned as he might be, would be able to tell you, even within an approximate number, how many seeds it fecundated, or how many of them it multiplied. Now, one act done in my will is more than sun, which multiplies to infinity not human, but divine seeds. Oh, how it surpasses the fecundity and the multiplicity of the seeds that the sun has fecundated. An innovation in the spiritual world occurs, and such harmony that all are attracted. In hearing this harmony, those who are most disposed get warm. Thousands and thousands effects arise like many seeds, and since the act done in my will carries the creative power with itself, it fecundates those seeds in a way which is incalculable to a finite mind. Therefore, the acts done in my will are divine seeds, which carry with them the creative power, and which more than suns not only fecundate, but create seeds, and multiply them to infinity. They give me the field for new creations, put my power in motion, and are the bearers of the divine life. December 10th, 1926, Volume 20, How the Divine Will is a Continuous Act that Never Ceases. How the Virgin let herself be dominated by this act, and formed its life within herself. How in heaven, in the feasts of the Virgin, they celebrate the divine will. My poor mind was swimming in the unending sea of the eternal volition, and my adorable Jesus showed, as the greatest prodigy, how his most holy will, while being so immense, would restrict itself within the creature, though remaining immense, in order to dominate her and form its life in her. The creature who would remain immersed under a continuous act of this divine will was the miracle of miracles, and the prodigy never before seen. And lovable Jesus, all goodness told me, "Dearest daughter of my will, you must know that only my volition possesses a continuous act that never ceases. This act is full of life, and therefore it gives life to everything. It preserves everything, and it maintains balance within itself and in all things. It alone can boast about possessing this continuous act of always giving life, of loving always, always, without ceasing for one instant. My humanity itself, if it possesses this continuous act, it is because in it flowed this continuous act of the supreme fiat. How long did the life of my humanity last upon earth? It was extremely short. As soon as I fulfilled what was necessary for the redemption, I departed for my celestial fatherland, though my acts remained. But these remained because they were animated by the continuous act of my will. On the other hand, my will never departs. It is always at its place, pre-existing, without ever interrupting its act of life over everything that came out of it. Oh, if my will departed from earth and from all created things, all things would lose their life and would resolve into nothing. Because my will created all things from nothing, if it withdrew, they would all lose their existence. Now, do you want to know who is she who let herself be dominated by this continuous act of my supreme will, and never giving life to her own, received this continuous act of life of divine will, in such a way as to form within herself a life fully divine, and in the likeness of her Creator? It was the celestial and sovereign Queen. From the very first instant of her immaculate conception, she received this act of life of divine will, to then receive it continuously during all of her life. This was the greatest prodigy, the miracle never before seen, the life of the divine will in the Empress of Heaven. In fact, one single act of life of this fiat can issue heavens, suns, seas, stars, and everything at once. So, all the human acts placed before a single act of life of this will of mine are like many drops of water that dissolve within the ocean, like little tiny flames before the sun, like atoms in the great space of the universe. Imagine yourself what the height of the Immaculate Queen possesses, with this life of continuous act of divine will formed in her. This was the true miracle, the prodigy never before seen, that the littleness of the celestial sovereign enclosed within herself a divine life, a will, immense and eternal, that possesses all possible and imaginable goods. Therefore, in all the feasts with which the Church honors my mamma, all heaven celebrates, glorifies, praises, and thanks the supreme will, because they see its life in her, the primary cause by which she obtained the longed-for Redeemer. And therefore, because this fiat had life that dominated and reigned in her, they find themselves in possession of the celestial Jerusalem. It was precisely the divine will that formed its life in this excelling creature, who opened heaven that had been closed by the human will. Therefore, with justice, while they celebrate the Queen, they celebrate the supreme fiat that made her Queen, reigned in her, formed its life, and is the primary cause of their eternal happiness. So a creature who lets my will dominate and gives it free field in order to form its life in her is the greatest of prodigies. She can move heaven and earth, even God himself, as if she were doing nothing, while she does everything. And she alone can win the most important things, destroy all obstacles, face anything, because a divine will reigns in her. And just as all the power of the fiat dwelling in the creature was needed in order to impetrate redemption, and my humanity that possessed that power was needed in order to form it, in the same way, in order to impetrate the coming of the kingdom of my fiat itself, another creature is needed, who would let it dwell within herself, and give it free field in order to form its life, so that my will itself, through her, may accomplish the one and most important prodigy, its coming to reign on earth as it does in heaven. And because this is the greatest thing that will place divine balance in the human family, I do great things in you. I centralize in you everything that is necessary and decorous to know about this kingdom of mine, the great good it wants to give, the happiness of those who will live in it, its long story, its long sorrow, and of many centuries. Because while it wants to come to reign in the midst of creatures to make them happy, they do not open the doors to it. They do not long for it. They do not invite it. And while it is present in their midst, they do not know it. Only a divine will could bear with such invincible patience being in their midst, giving them life, and being not even known. My will is great, endless, and infinite, and wherever it reigns, it wants to do things worthy of its greatness, of its sanctity, and of the power it contains. Therefore be attentive, my daughter. This is not about just anything, or about forming a sanctity, but it is about forming a kingdom for my adorable and divine will. December 10th, 1929, Volume 27. Perfect Balance of God in His Works. Triple Balance. I was feeling all abandoned in the divine will and continuing to do my acts in it. I heard a voice that whispered to my ear, "How tired I am." I felt stirred by this voice, and I wanted to know who it might be that was tired. And my sweet Jesus, moving and making himself heard in my interior, told me, "My daughter, it is I myself, he who feels all the weight of so much waiting. And this produces such tiredness in me that I feel all the weight of wanting to do good and not being able to do it because of the lack of disposition of those who must receive it. Oh, how hard it is wanting to do good, having it prepared and ready to give it, and finding no one who would receive it. Now you must know that when my fiat places itself in the act of operating, it has the same power, wisdom, immensity, and multiplicity of effects that its single act produces. If only it decides to go out into its divine field of action, its act possesses perfect balance between one and the other, and contains the same value, weight, and measure. My divine will, in going out into its field of action and creation, made display of such great magnificence of works, so much so that man himself is incapable of numbering them all and of comprehending the right value of each work. And even though he sees them, touches them, and enjoys its beneficial effects, yet he can be called the first little ignorant one of creation. Who can tell how much light and heat the sun contains, how many effects it produces, and what the light is formed of? No one. Yet all see it and feel its heat, and so with all other things. Now my redemption holds hands with creation, and possesses as many acts for as many as creation possesses. They are in perfect balance, one with the other, because creation was an act of my divine will, and an act of it was redemption. Now having to do another of its acts in the great fiat voluntas tua, on earth as it is in heaven, many other acts are there ready in my divine fiat, in such a way that they will have the triple balance of acts, the same value, weight, and measure. And in seeing myself forced to wait, and feeling within myself the multiplicity of the acts I want to do, and not doing them because the kingdom of my fiat is not known and does not reign on earth, I feel such tiredness that I become fidgety, and I say, how is it possible that they do not want to receive my goods? And I remain afflicted because my acts, the power of my divine volition, its light, its happiness and beauty, do not bind themselves as brothers with the creatures, and do not run into their midst. Therefore compassionate me if you see me and hear me taciturn. It is the too much tiredness I feel from so much waiting that reduces me to silence. December 10th, 1933, Volume 33. The first word that Adam pronounced. What the first lesson that God gave him was. The divine will operating in man. I am always the little tiny ignorant one of the Supreme Being, and when the divine volition plunges me in its seas, I see that hardly the vowels, if that, do I know about his adorable majesty. And my littleness is so much that hardly do I know how to swallow some little drop of the so much that the Creator possesses. So going around in the works of the divine fiat, I stopped in Eden, in which was made present to me the creation of man, and I thought to myself, what could be the first word that Adam said when he was created by God? And my highest good, Jesus, visiting me with his brief little visit, all goodness, as if he himself wanted to tell it to me, told me, my daughter, I also feel the desire to tell you what was the first word pronounced by the lips of the first creature created by us. You must know that no sooner did Adam feel life, motion, reason, than he saw his God before him, and he understood that he had formed him. He felt in himself, in his whole being, still fresh, the impressions, the touch of his creative hands, and grateful, in an impetus of love, he pronounced his first word. I love you, my God, my Father, author of this my life. But it was not only the word, but the breath, the heartbeat, the drops of his blood that flowed in his veins, the motion. His whole being united together said as in chorus, I love you, I love you, I love you. In fact, the first lesson that he learned from his Creator, the first word that he learned to say, the first thought that had life in his mind, the first heartbeat that formed in his heart was, I love you, I love you. He felt himself loved, and he loved. I could say that his I love you never ended. It was so long that only then was it interrupted when he had the disgrace of falling into sin. So our divinity felt wounded in hearing on the lips of man, I love you, I love you. It was the same word that we had created in the organ of his voice that said to us, I love you. It was our love, created by us in the creature, that says to us, I love you. How not to remain wounded? How not to exchange him with a larger, stronger love worthy of our magnificence? As we heard "I love you" said to us, so we repeated to him "I love you." But in our "I love you," we let the operating life of our divine will flow in his being, into his whole being. In fact, we enclosed in man, as within one of our temples, our will, such that it was enclosed in the human circle, while it remained in us, so that it could work great things, and it could be the thought, the word, the heartbeat, the step, and the work of man. Our "I love you" could not give anything more holy, more beautiful, more powerful, that alone could form the life of the Creator in the creature, than our will operating in him. And oh, how pleasing it is to us to see that our will has its place of actor, and the human volition, dazzled by its light, enjoyed its paradise, and giving it full liberty, it let it do what it wanted, giving it the primacy in everything, and the place of honor that is befitting to a volition so holy. See, therefore, the beginning of the life of Adam was an act, with his whole being, full of love toward God. What a sublime lesson, how the beginning of love would run in the whole operation of the creature. The first lesson that he received from our Supreme Being in exchange for his "I love you" was that while we tenderly loved him, responding to his "I love you," we gave him the first lesson on our divine will. And while we instructed him, we communicated to him its life and the infused science of what our divine fiat means. And every time he said "I love you" to us, our love prepared for him other, more beautiful lessons about our volition. He remained enraptured, and we delighted ourselves in conversing with him, and we made perennial rivers of love and of joys flow over him, such that the human life became enclosed by us in love and in our will. Therefore, my daughter, there is no greater sorrow for us than seeing our love as broken in the creature, and our will obstructed, suffocated, without its operating life, and as subordinate to the human volition. So be attentive, and in all things have love and my divine will for beginning. End of December 10th. Fiat. Additional note: there are no chapters for December 11th. Fiat.